something big is coming, which has raised Ukraine's caution so much that it has started fortifying its defenses heavily. On the morning of May 18, the Ukrainian satellite captured something alerting. The satellite operators recorded a convoy of special vehicles on the M1 highway near the Belarusian city of Belarus. Heavy trucks with lead-lined containers were noticed moving towards the east, where Russia lies, escorted by the military. In truth, lead-lined containers are capable of containing harmful radiation and are used to transport radioactive materials to hospitals or nuclear plants. Now, you must have gotten a hint at what the sight of such containers signified. That same day, the Belarusian Defense Ministry made an announcement of the start of a joint nuclear exercise with the Kremlin. Russia confirmed delivering nuclear munitions to Belarusian field storage sites as part of 3-day nuclear exercises involving both countries. The drills, among the largest since the Ukraine war began, included Iskander-M missile systems, strategic bombers, submarines, and over 64,000 troops. Belarusian opposition figures accused President Alexander Lukashenko of drawing the country into nuclear blackmail, while Moscow retained operational control over the weapons. An event strangely similar to this had happened in the past, which did not end well. In February 2022, Russia had conducted similar nuclear exercises on Belarusian territory and then proceeded to launch an offensive on Kyiv. Ever since the attack, Ukraine has always been cautious of Belarus's every single step. And now, after the recent suspicious activity, Ukraine suspects Belarus's involvement in further expansion of the war. We are preparing for war. A dangerous sentence was stated by none other than the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko. From past events, it has come to be known that Belarus is a springboard, a launch pad for the Russians to attack Ukrainian territory, but Belarus's direct involvement wasn't an issue for the Ukrainian army until recently. In April, Lukashenko had issued a decree calling up reserve officers and launched conscription for compulsory military service of men aged 18-27. Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, had said that Russia sought to draw Belarus into its war against Ukraine and that roads and artillery positions had been prepared near the two countries' border. This statement wasn't an empty statement. Following the news of the threat, on May 21st, Ukraine made an upgrade in its defenses bordering Belarus. It was reported that the nation had started ramping up security in regions bordering Belarus after warning for weeks of a possible fresh attack launched from Russia's ally Belarus. The Ukrainian border with Belarus has been transformed into a powerful and virtually impenetrable defensive line in response to suspicious activities by the allied countries. The defense forces of Ukraine are currently fully prepared for any possible provocations from the neighboring republic. The military says, despite the deceptive calm from Belarus, Ukrainian forces remain vigilant, as the neighboring state continues to act as a Kremlin satellite and a potential staging ground for the enemy. Recently, the country's northern frontier has been turned into a true fortress, with kilometers of field fortifications, hundreds of revetments for military equipment, and fortified firing positions along the border. A highly efficient system of minefields, trenches, and barriers is further reinforced by the difficult natural terrain of the Polisia region, represented by dense forests, swamps, and rivers. Border guards serving within the Operational Command West securely hold their assigned section of the state border. The troops remain in constant readiness to respond immediately to any hostile actions. Any new aggressive actions against Ukraine will be met with severe consequences, warned Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on the 21st of May. The president himself visited the northern city of Slavitik to coordinate border defense strategies with local leaders. Meeting with community heads from the Kyiv and Chernihiv regions, Zelensky emphasized the ongoing construction of fortifications and the deployment of additional defense and security forces. These reinforcements are specifically designed to secure the northern frontier against potential threats originating from Belarus and Russia's Bryansk region. After noticing that Moscow is trying to drag Minsk deeper into the war, the president presented a clear warning saying that Ukraine, without a doubt, possesses the capability to act preventively against Russian staging grounds, and warned the Belarusian leader to stay on his toes, hinting at the irreversible repercussions for any hostile moves. The president also expressed his contempt for the offensive which came from Belarus's territory in 2022. He later assured the public that Ukrainian intelligence and defense forces fully understand the current threat matrix and are prepared to respond justly and unconditionally. Don't be mistaken about all this news of Belarus's involvement being just a speculation, because it is not. Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko himself had recently claimed to officially join Russia's war against Ukraine if Belarus is attacked first, vowing to defend the motherland from Brest to Vladivostok. After stating this blatant threat, Lukashenko then proceeded to make a sudden proposal to hold talks with Ukrainian president. However, the Ukrainian president's office refused and dismissed the proposal, with presidential advisor Dmytro Litvin stating that Lukashenko's words have meant nothing since he allowed his country to be used as a staging ground for the 2022 full-scale invasion. Rebuking the offer for negotiations, Litvin emphasized that Kyiv is ignoring the dictator's rhetoric and focusing entirely on monitoring tangible military movements along the northern frontier and focusing on protecting their country to their full capacity. Even though Belarus seems to be openly supporting its ally, analysts suggest a full-scale offensive from Belarus is unlikely due to the political risks for Minsk, but the threat may serve to tie down Ukrainian forces. Kyiv is preparing for multiple scenarios, from renewed pressure on northern Ukraine to potential operations against NATO members. Alternative outcomes include Belarus maintaining its current non-combat role while continuing military integration with Russia, or escalating involvement if Moscow seeks new leverage against the West. An army preparing for an attack leaves traces which are almost impossible to hide in today's world. Field hospitals with blood and medicine supplies, ammunition and fuel depots, field command posts, and a changed radio communication regime are required. But none of this is currently happening on the Belarusian side. Satellite imagery and reports all have recorded one thing: there's no deployment of strike groups yet. The State Border Guard Service and the 15th Army Corps deployed in the north have also confirmed that no troop accumulation has been recorded on the Belarusian side, which confirms the fact that currently, at the very least, Belarus is not planning a direct attack on Ukraine. However, Belarus is already operating as a full-fledged staging ground for the Russian army. Specifically, Russian operators control strike shaheds through a mesh network of relay stations located on Belarusian territory in attacks on Ukraine, which is more than enough for the country to be viewed as a major threat. Ukraine has defended its territory quite effectively in recent times. Counterattack strike operations by the Kremlin have all failed. Now, you may be thinking, how is it that a great nation known for its military power is losing to a country almost broke? New strategic innovations by the Ukrainian military have played a significant role in the country holding its ground, while Ukraine itself is not to be underestimated. There is a sense of desperation amongst the Russians that has made Ukraine's success in its operations quite prominent. The fact is, Russians are dying at the front faster than they can recruit new volunteers to fight against Ukraine. Under these conditions, the Kremlin would need to create the appearance of pressure using low-budget means, throwing dust in the eyes of both Ukraine and Western partners. And that's exactly what Lukashenko is doing. The goal is specific: to force the Ukrainian armed forces to pull reserves to the north, easing the Russian occupiers' advance in the Pokrovsk, Kostiantynivka, and Orikhiv directions. But it's not as simple as it seems. The Kremlin's problem is way deeper than you'd think. The topic of Ukraine has started to become toxic even inside of Russia. If Russia does risk something more than a simulation involving Belarus, it will be an offensive against the most vulnerable NATO countries to capture them quickly and demonstrate it as a victory. This could be a combined strike against all three Baltic countries, an offensive through Lithuania's so-called Suwalki Gap from Belarus to the Kaliningrad Oblast, the Russian exclave on the Baltic Sea, and a strike from the territory of the Leningrad military district into Estonia and Latvia. To conclude the current situation, Russia's running out of troops and has resorted to using the Belarus card. This fact alone brings out the real vulnerability of Russia's situation. So does that mean Ukraine's at an advantage? Recently, Ukrainian forces struck deeper into Russian territory, piercing its air defenses in a large strike on the Moscow region. This attack took place after the fears of a Ukrainian attack forced the Russians to scale down its Victory Day parade. Kyiv has also been relentlessly striking Russia's oil facilities and military logistics, attempting to disrupt supplies to the front line. So what is the reality? The truth is, nothing's certain or set in stone. The only thing confirmed is that the war is heading towards further expansion, and the possibility of the fire extinguishing is close to none. Will Belarus take a bold move, or will Ukraine take the initiative? Only time will tell.